Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Good Love Podcast, a Good Love project production with your friendly neighborhood sex geek and good lover, Katrina Boots Rainsong. Here at the GLP, we strive for informed, enthusiastic consent, so this is your content warning. The Good Love Podcast is a sex and relationship education podcast directed to adult listeners. We offer playful, powerful, and positive education on sexuality, pleasure, kink, sexual health and wellness, and a slew of other grown and sexy topics. If you find any of these topics objectionable, you're welcome to skip an episode or even the whole show. If you're under 18, we recommend heading over to scarletine.com for all youth-focused sex ed needs. Now, if you're an enthusiastic yes, get comfy and enjoy the show. Hello, good lovers. Happy Thursday. The episode that you're going to hear today was recorded over the weekend while I was at Southwest Flow Fest. So this is your preemptive apology for the sound. I did not have my microphones with me, so there's a bit of some wind buzz, and you may hear some bass from the DJs playing in the background. But you're going to love the conversation. It's a really great one. Oh, enjoy. Hey, good lovers. I'm here at the Southwest Flow Fest, an amazing festival in northern Arizona focused on flow and fire arts, as well as movement, yoga, and so many other things that I love. And while here, I got to be introduced to an amazing harm reduction group, the Good Eggs. And they were kind enough to join me today for a conversation. So we have Cody and Emma of the Good Eggs. Please introduce yourselves.
Well, thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for having us to talk about why we're here, why harm reduction is important in a festival setting. My name is Emma. To be honest, I'm fairly new to the harm reduction community, but when I stumbled upon it, it was exactly to what was calling me in terms of how I could be of service to others in a community setting. Based out of Arizona, and just so grateful to be here.
Awesome. Thank you. We'll just pass the phone around like a mic.
Howdy. Thanks, Kat. It's a pleasure to get to chat with you today. My name is Cody. I've been hanging out with the Good Eggs and doing this kind of work for a couple years. And the Good Eggs, this is the name of our harm reduction. It's a peer-to-peer support group. We specialize in creating a safe, fun, and fulfilling space for events. And kind of to Emma's point, she used the word service. And when I tell my story about this harm reduction vein of life, that's the word that I like to use. And I think the underbelly that keeps us all connected is the music, and we're all here to kind of support that. So when I fell in love with the music and this type of environment that promotes that and allows it and puts it on loudspeakers, and I asked myself, how do I help keep this going? How do I push this momentum forward? And harm reduction is the answer that I found for that, and it's beautiful to get to show up in service for people in the music world as well.
Fantastic. So how long have the Good Eggs been around? How long have you been doing the thing?
The Good Eggs were established. The brainchild behind all this is a gal named Daisy Beltran. She has been in the music festival for many, many years, and it started in, I believe, 2018. And that came just from a need of especially local events here in Arizona, where safety just wasn't fully being considered at all layers when hosting live music events. And so coming from people who've had that experience where they needed a helping friend or a helping hand and there wasn't one available, we recognize that there's a need for that in this type of community, and have come together and banded together as volunteers and put a lot of our own hours and time and love into this. And it's been growing every year, and it's really cool to see the way that it's adopted and loved by the community, especially here with the Arizona music scene. There's a beautiful advocation for helping each other, keeping it safe, and just being within community.
That's beautiful. I love that. Yeah. Let's see. And this space, I am sitting in the nest, as they call it, right now. I actually got to help set it up when I first got here, which was great. And it truly is a nest. It is comfy, cozy. There's soft things everywhere. I notice, of course, there's plenty of like sensory things and blankets for comfort. What else do you provide here at the nest, both in terms of like items and services?
Sure. So we also have things that you might need while navigating the space of a festival, such as earbuds, water. We also have Narcan. They're Narcan.
Like Narcan nasal
yes. And as well as tons of literature about consent, safety, health. So this is a space for to feel comfortable and cozy up and play with the fidget toys, and it's also a place for education, so we can educate ourselves.
For my listeners who don't know yet, can you quickly kind of explain, what does harm reduction mean? Or what does it mean to you?
Sure. That's a fun one. And it can be such a big thing to look at in some sense, where, like, what is like harm reduction? And at its simplest terms, we're talking about reducing harm. And to do that, we need to really meet reality where it's at, in its truest form. And so it's that. It's meeting people, meeting reality where it's at, so that we can be honest and offer realistic and effective solutions to help people navigate through their own experience and their own journey. So when you say harm reduction, and that's why Emma talked about harm reduction in the festival capacity, because this is kind of like one finger of a whole hand. Whereas the harm reduction could mean things like Planned Parenthood or needle exchanges, or like anything else that's really just like helping people navigate in a more healthy type way, offering those services. So specifically in the festival world, we really embody that mentality where it's simply we're here to reduce harm, keep everything safe, fun, fulfilling in a non-judgmental type way. Being in the festival scene, that kind of puts us into a set of circumstances that reoccur or come up often. So that's where we tend to talk about things like Narcan and a lot of consent, as far as how do we interact with each other in a consentful type way, where we're being respectful and embodying all those pieces as well.
Awesome. So of course, here at the Good Love Project, part of being a good lover is definitely consent. We talk about consent and consent communication a lot. How do the Good Eggs teach consent or talk about consent? I know you've had a few open was it like a discussion group or more like a mini workshop situation?
A combination of both. So
combination of both.
That we hosted this weekend were kind of workshop kind of discussions, and the idea is that we'd invite people into it and get some engagement and go from there. With consent, really the main piece there is reducing the stigma overall, both for consent and for drugs. And that's by doing things like the discussions. It's by putting it into real life, like having these conversations and letting the awareness be had about them. Looking at consent specifically, we kind of take a couple different things we can talk about there. There's one, like the overall framework of consent and educating them like what that means and making sure that people feel comfortable knowing how to approach and either receive a yes or no, or also how to give a yes or no in any circumstance as well. And in addition to the framework aspect of consent, it's also the education piece. An example that I like to use is consent's a very like cultural, like even like a very local type thing. The example that I use, if I was to go jump on a plane and fly to France right now, like I might start vibing with people and start getting kissed on the cheek, and like at least where we're at here in Arizona, like that's a no-go. Like if strangers start kissing you, like like that's something worth being offended about. And it's not to say that's disrespect coming from a different culture. Rather, it's just a matter of education and from where we are. So with that, we need to really kind of define what's our standard, what's our education of consent, and how do we really kind of agree upon that of those that are around us. And to be very straightforward with that, it comes with making sure that consent's given for anything, whether it's a hug, and a dance, buying somebody a drink, and we can really practice all of those layers.
Emma, would you like to tack anything on to that?
Well, Cody, should we go to a tea party?
Ooh, a tea party.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. You want to invite me?
Oh, I haven't hosted a tea party before, but I'll try. This is good. This is good practice.
We're in this together.
Exactly. So, listeners, I'm hosting a tea party right here in the nest, and I think
Knock knock.
Yes. Who is it?
Yoo-hoo, it's you.
Oh. Why, hello. What's your name?
My name is Cody. I heard there's a 7 p.m. tea party here.
Well, there is. Would you like to attend?
Oh, please.
Well, come on in.
Thank you, ma'am.
Of course. Now, I have so many teas here. Would you like some tea?
I could use a warm chamomile this evening.
A warm chamomile. Let me see if I have. Oh, I do have some chamomile. Do you like it sweet?
No, not typically.
So like no sugar, no Splenda, no stevia, no none.
Yeah, let's keep the tea more tea.
You got it. What about any milk?
Well, I think I would need more information before I decided about that.
Gotcha. Yeah, there's so many options there. Look at the shelves these days. Well, I think that's the kettle. The hot water's ready. Let me pour this hot water.
Ooh. Yeah,
Oh.
add a splash of almond milk in there.
Oh,
That'd be good.
Oh, I do have.
Lovely.
Well, Cody, your tea is ready. Would you like some tea?
Perfect. Thank you for preparing this just exactly the way that I like it. I would love some tea.
You're welcome. Yes. I think I'm gonna need some help on how this intertwines consent.
That's a beautiful example of a conversation which seems something very practical, where we can both say yes and no and navigate really exactly what it is we want through that experience in a way there's not any questions left to be determined. You're not guessing like, hey, I think he wants some salt and some sugar and some things in there. It's all very implicit. So we're talking about consent. The easiest acronym that I like to come back to and to talk about is FRIES. FRIES. F for consent being freely given. R for reversible. I for informed. For example, like I'm not sure what kind of milk you want. Like, and unless I have a full grasp of understanding of what I'm saying yes to, I don't want to say yes to it. E for enthusiastic. Like, I freaking love tea party, so I'm in on that. And S specific. Like I know I'm getting into. And so with that type of framework in through a conversation, we can really transpose that idea of having tea and sharing tea into anything. Whether it's a hug, whether it's a kiss, whether it's a dance, whether it's buying a drink with somebody. These are the ways that we can kind of communicate and make sure that you're crossing all your dots and you're crossing your T's, dotting your I's, and so that you're approaching that in a very respectful and kind and welcoming way. And it may seem like you're jumping through hoops, but at least when I've done this or communicated with people in these type of ways, like it's respected so deep through and through.
I like that word, respect. I feel like consent helps us cultivate respect within ourselves and for others. Why do we ask for consent? There's things that we do that helps us connect, that we want to connect. And sometimes people aren't ready for that, or they're super inclined to do it. And I think if we want to build community and connection, there has to be respect, and I feel like consent really intertwines and helps us lead there.
You know what's really cool about this community? Yesterday I was hanging out, we were dancing in the tent, and I had an interaction with somebody, and I go up to him and I said, hey, can I give you a hug? And he looks me in the eye and he said, you know what I love more than hugs is consent. and he gives me a big old hug.
Yes.
I love that.
God bless.
That's great. And I loved that skit. That was so perfect. And yeah, especially the informed part. That was so great because most, like, I know when I've had conversations with people talking about consent and informed consent, and like being more spicy or explicit and saying like, well, you can't just say, do you want to have sex? It's like, well, why not? Like, everyone knows what sex is. I'm like, but do you? Because there's so many different things that could be going on in that, and what does that mean? And so yeah, it's like, I need more information about that. What kind of milk do you want? What kind of milk are you offering? That's, I loved that piece. That was great.
May I speak to that for a
Yes,
moment?
absolutely.
That's so, I'm so glad you brought that up, because like sex for me is like, yes, it's about the body, but it's really in the mind as well. And when we're connecting with others or bringing the body into play, like, sure, it's like what's physically on the outside, what we can see, what we can feel, what we can touch, but it's so intertwined with the mind. If I'm saying no to somebody, it's usually because in my consciousness there's a sense of something in the past happened, or it affected my mind and my perception, and I think it's very beautiful to open our minds and to learn from others and open our perception to things, but we can take our time with that, because perception is a powerful tool and the mind is totally interplayed with that.
Absolutely. As I'm listening to you, I had this thought, this vision of, imagine coming up to someone and being like, hi, would you like to be vulnerable with me?
Nope.
Ooh, like, how intense is that? And like, yeah, for some people it's gonna be like, nope, and some other people will be like, hell yeah, that sounds amazing, right. You know. But yeah, I mean, that really is kind of what we're asking, you know, whether like it's a one-off, like festy, like, you know, you're cute kind of a thing, or if it's like a deep emotional bond. Hey, do you want to be vulnerable with me? And
I'm interested in that question because this comes from a conversation that I got to have with somebody yesterday, and we were talking about the idea of vulnerability, and essentially somebody had asked him that question, like, hey, like, be vulnerable, and he's like, I don't know what that means. Like, I don't know how to do that. So I'm curious, like, as you're talking about that, like, what does it really even mean to be vulnerable, like, in that type of way?
Yeah, because that goes back to that informed consent. Yeah, what does that mean? Like, what kind of vulnerability are we talking about? Yeah, because there's physical vulnerability. If I go outside, I mean, not now because the sun's going down, but if I go outside at high noon and I'm not putting sunblock, I'm vulnerable to getting a burn. That's, you know, physical vulnerability. But yeah, vulnerability can also be letting someone know you, know a part of you emotionally, mentally. I think it's interesting, like, in certain, like, you know, religions or spiritual practices, how, like, prayer, meditation can even be seen as a very vulnerable thing. And so is it something you do on your own or something that you do with a group? And I have seen some people get very uncomfortable with the idea of going to, like, say, a satsang where everyone is chanting together, meditating together, because it's so personal and vulnerable to them, that sharing that in that space and that energy with a group of people that you may or may not know that well. So I guess, yeah, if the question is, do you want to get vulnerable with me? Then, yeah, the next question would be, I need more information. Yeah. It's kind of like the practice we had in clowning class, of everyone, you know, taking their turn to walk on the stage. I'm doing finger quotes here, folks, on the stage, because there wasn't a stage. And just stand in front of everyone with no act, no mask of any kind, and seeing how different people responded to this space of being vulnerable or having the I'm going to say even the opportunity for vulnerability.
Yeah, absolutely.
Are you open to sharing your experience through that clown workshop and how it felt for you to step into that vulnerability?
Yeah. So for me, because I am a performer, and a lot of my performance is very vulnerable. Like I do in probably more like traditional ideas of vulnerability. You know, I do burlesque, so I'm taking my clothes off in front of people. But I also do things that have done performances that are very emotion driven, and processing your own emotions out on stage, that can be intense. But no matter what, there's still a purpose, and so there's still a feeling of control, at least for me, even when I have been at my most physically or emotionally naked in front of people. So trying to get out of that performer headspace. And it's interesting. I think I was talking with you about that the other day. We were talking about taking performance out of pleasure. Taking the performance out of pleasure and focusing on just being present.
Yeah.
And being present with others. So, yeah, like I didn't find it, I know some people in the group I could see like really kind of almost getting choked up, having some intense emotions about it. It wasn't super emotional for me, but it definitely gave me things to think about and remind myself that, you know, I can just chill. Yeah.
Yeah, that exercise was interesting for me too. I also have a performing background, and more so in musical theater, physical theater, clown, and voice. And I found that I kind of was like, I was like a little like acting, or like it came into play, and I remember that conversation with the man who talked about how do you display vulnerability. And something that I've found, especially in creating art or performances, is that trying to display vulnerability is just the after effect of the actual performance. And to get down to the basics, from what you smell to what you see to what you can feel, to the things around you. And maybe you have like, this is point A, I'm starting here, I gotta get to point B. And use that as your guide and allow for the vulnerability to come up of its own will. Never have I gone into an experience of like, oh, well, I'm gonna be vulnerable right now, let's go. It's always been like, oh, this seems like a great conversation. I'm in tears the next like 5 minutes later. It's like, well, I didn't see that coming. Being in a space like this, actually in festival spaces, I found that I'm almost at my most vulnerable. It's very intense here, and at both situations I've had very intense experiences where I just kind of have to break down, and it's never something planned. It just happens of its own accord. So I think, I don't know, the word grace comes up, like having grace for ourselves, of our own process of revealing ourselves, which includes like how we connect with people and what we decide to share or not share, where consent can be such a beautiful invitation to bring us into that space where there is connection and perhaps vulnerability.
Yeah, and that decision making is really a form of getting self-consent, isn't it?
You talk about decisions, and you also mentioned, kind of like going into a performance. You can really like subscribe into that. You can be like raw or naked if there's a purpose to it, if there's an intention to it. You can kind of like let go of all else. And it's really cool you recognize like that by being present, And by having that intention underlying, we can really like subscribe and release into what it is that we're doing. And the idea of like vulnerability, like I think that's what a lot of people would call vulnerability who aren't practiced with an open heart, perhaps. You know, does that make sense?
Speak to that a little more.
Sure. Well, maybe vulnerability is a skill, right? And as Emma kind of talks about it, like with grace, like those are things that happen with experience. It's like the amount of time that you've been vulnerable and been able to like hold a mature mentality for yourself there. Like it's okay to be vulnerable, but like what are you doing with it? Like vulnerability implies heightened emotions and maybe even like sadness and tears, but that doesn't imply a victim by any means. It's emotions and it's natural, but it's not something that's happening to us. So I guess with these type of words, talking about intention and purpose, and we can really be vulnerable and still have faith that we're like on the right track, doing what we need to do, and like that being vulnerable and having those moments of breakdowns are like part of the experience that we need, both for ourselves and the lessons that we get from it, but also the idea that everything we're doing is an example for others. And it'd be silly for me to ask other people to speak deeply or to speak vulnerably if I'm not willing to go there myself.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you brought that up because I went to college for theater and studied physical theater in Arezzo in Italy for a year, and we had personal pieces that we had to create. And at some point during the semester, I was like, and I don't do this, and especially not at 20. I was like, I want to be naked for my piece. And I just remember this need in me of like, there has to be a reason. It has to have a purpose. It's not just for the sake of being naked. There needs to be something behind it. And I didn't really use the word intention back then because I didn't really know it, but that's what I was looking for. And so just to speak to the fact of like being purposeful with the experiences we curate for ourselves, for others, it's gonna arouse something in people, especially when we step out of our box, especially when we're on stage doing that. And why are we performing? Why are we creating as artists? Why are we creating a performance piece? Like, is it just for the sake of performing, or are we trying to connect with something that's deeper, that connects with all of us? And I think those questions of what is my intention are really important to be asked, whether you're on stage or on, life stage.
Yeah, totally. It's funny, telling your story when knowing I want to be nude, but I need a reason. Had a flashback to went to a burlesque show in New York in like the Bushwick area.
Oh my God, I used to live there.
It's like Bushwick Bazaar.
No, but there's also House of Yes, which is also great.
Yes. I remember because like here in Arizona, it's you have to keep like panties and pasties on. But in New York, you can like go full, and so I had never seen a burlesque show where people were going full nude. And the host, the MC, she was hilarious because she was literally just on stage in just some boots and a white ribbed tank top and just like Donald Duck in it. And she was just like, "This is it. This is like," she like cracked a joke about herself being like lazy or something, and I was just like, she's being so present and just like, this is what I wanted and I'm allowed, so here's what you get. And I just thought that was so fantastic, and that it was very intentional and yet not.
Yeah. That's great.
Awesome. So final words, we'll wrap up. I'd love to hear from each of you. What was the highlight of the weekend? And what is one thing that you would love my listeners, all the good lovers out there, to take away from our chat today?
Send it, Emma.
All right. Well, this afternoon, I came back from my break, and one of our other good eggs said, something just happened. And I was like, oh, what happened? And she said, a woman came over here looking for you. And I was like, oh. She said, you gave her an egg at the Dome last night during the fire performances, and it really spoke to her, and you should go and ask her what it is. So she pointed me to the woman. I saw her, I recognized her, and she said, oh my goodness, I opened that egg and it said, stop clenching your jaw.
That's one of the ones that I wrote.
Oh my god! Oh my god! Oh my. Okay. So the woman who I just randomly gave this to, she has some sort of JTL something. I don't know the acronym.
Like a TMJD.
Oh, TMJ.
Yeah,
That's it.
yeah.
All right, I got TM because I was like, oh, transcendental meditation. She's like, no, wait. I was like, oh, okay. So she has that, and she was telling me she's had like an extensive background in trying to repair it, and at that moment where she opened the egg, while she was watching the fire performance, she was clenching her jaw, and so she opened it, and it was like it was like an angel from above.
Oh my god.
So she was like, I don't know what happened, but that was magic, and that was like a highlight of my weekend. And the fact that you wrote it,
I was the one. Yeah. So here at the Nest, they have all these. They're like the plastic Easter eggs that you normally put like candy and whatnot for children to do Easter egg hunts, and they write little like notes or like kind of like fortune cookies, affirmations, things. And I had helped write a few, and oh my god, that is totally one of the ones that I wrote.
Oh my goodness, Kat, that's amazing.
Oh,
You're
love
an angel.
that. Yay. Ah.
So yeah, that was really awesome. And one thing that really speaks to me about why I love this work is like that we physically create a space such as the Nest as a safe space and an educational space, but then we give you tools to create the safe space within yourself so that you can leave the Nest and feel empowered. And we have reminders which are beautiful from each other to the little eggs to some earbuds in our pocket. But the education through experience of how do we create safe space for ourselves by taking care of our bodies and our mind is a wonderful skill. And that's, I feel, what the good eggs helps. It helps create other eggs and hatches new possibilities. And you don't even need a space.
I love that. I love the safe space within yourself. That's beautiful. Fantastic. So.
Well, highlight of Southwest Flow Fest 2023. One of my favorite things that has happened this weekend so far was we got to host a discussion yesterday, and one of the things that we asked everybody, we were sitting there, there's, I don't know, 8 or 12 of us sitting in a circle, and we were doing a quick intro. Everyone said their name. Hi, Cody. And also something that we learned this weekend. And most festivals are music festivals, right? Like you're there for the music, then you're having that type of experience. But like at a Flow Fest, like there's a different vibe here overall. It's a very like learned type energy. Like people are here like to experience and to like learn things and to skill share. And it was very profound to go around and to hear each person say something that they've been like learning or experience or like really like finding new awareness from like in their journey. And it's just a reminder of like how potent that is and how much that's happening when we offer big spaces and we get a couple hundred people all together to intentionally share these type of things. So that felt very good for me, very reaffirming that these are the type of places that I'd like to be in my life.
Awesome. And what's one thing that you would like the good lovers, the listeners, to take away from this conversation?
You are empowered, and anything that you want to do in your life, you're capable of doing. And it's a matter of a decision and a conscious plan to get there. And with that, we each have the ability to save lives and open minds and create happiness, but being our most authentic self and allowing that to overflow to other people. Kind of like Emma mentioned, that's kind of how we make other good eggs. You just show up and you be that example for yourself, and other people are going to recognize the health and the joy and the peace that come from that and want to follow suit. So be the example, take care of yourself, and that's the best way you can help those around you.
Awesome. I love that. Sorry, that's my water alarm reminding me to drink.
It's so important.
Yeah. Every couple of hours I get a reminder, drink your water. Where's my water? Right here.
I'll take it.
All right, cheers. To health, salud.
Okay.
So if my listeners would like to, follow you, get involved, donate, what are plug your pluggables? Where can people find you? What's the info that they need?
Sure. We're going to give you 3. We'll give you the good eggs first, and then I'll do mine, and then Emma's. If you want to hear about the Good Egg Initiative and what we're doing and the other festivals we're working at, follow Good Eggs AZ on Instagram, Facebook. Again, my name is Cody Fitzgerald. Best way to reach me these days is through my Instagram, Curiosity Coaching, Curiosity with the D. Do mindset coaching and help artists get over the overwhelm and navigate life in a way they can create on purpose. And Emma, share your magic.
Sure. My name is Emma Parrots, and the best way to reach out to me is through Instagram. I go by The Modern Day Mystic, and I kind of use the platform to tell my story and to empower you to step into yours and the unveiling of it all. I do work with kids. I teach theater to kids, and learning how to bridge performance art and harm reduction together as one.
Awesome. Thank you both so much. I will definitely be following the both of you and the Good Eggs, and thank you so much for giving me this time to have this wonderful conversation.
It's been a pleasure. What you're doing is special. Thanks for sharing your awareness and just bringing this idea and a safe place to the way we're showing up in life. You invite that and you embody in a beautiful way.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think you were one of the highlights of my weekend as well.
You were definitely one of my highlights.
and I told Nathan that just earlier today, like the way that you step into your empowerment, the way the costume that you wear, that we all wear. I don't think I'd wear that costume for myself, but your embodiment of what it means to you and the empowerment behind it all makes me empowered in my own role of how we're on like same type of missions, and yet we just wear different hats, and you wear yours splendidly.
Thank you so very much for that. So this has been the Good Love Podcast. I am Katrina, aka Boots, and we're here at Southwest Flow Fest. Until next time, keep on good loving.